It's been 2 weeks since the release of a bombshell CIA interrogation report by Democratic members of the Senate Intelligence Committee. And fallout is far from over. The New York Times editorial board is now calling for the prosecution of all government officials involved in the torture of terrorism suspects, all the way up to former Vice President Dick Cheney. That presumably includes the unidentified 49-year-old al-Qaida expert referenced throughout the report. And here's what we know about her based on that report. She holds a senior position in the CIA. In military terms, she'd be a general. She participated in the brutal so-called enhanced interrogations of accused 9/11 mastermind Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and others. And she lied about the effectiveness of those interrogation techniques during a Senate hearing. She's also one of several CIA operatives who are the basis for the lead character in the film Zero Dark 30. The picture of this unnamed operative stands in stark contrast to my next guest, though. Carle retired from the CIA after 23 years of service. He participated in the interrogation of top-level members of al-Qaida and refused orders to engage in torture. Welcome to Greater Boston.
Thank you.
So you were there you observed this. You were asked to use enhanced interrogation techniques. You refused to comply. But being in the CIA, seeing this unfold before you, what was the change in culture that suddenly took hold, and how was it able to take hold when that had never been applicable techniques?
That's one of the harder questions to answer. John Brennan, the director of the CIA, in part explanation or justification for what happened, recently said that there was a climate of fear, pressure was intense and so on. That is all true, but I don't think that explains or justifies anything, frankly. Our job as officers at all levels is not to react in fear, but to be rational and professional and to get it right. And the choices were pretty clear, really. Our laws are very clear. So how it happened, the CIA is not a rogue institution. It does follow orders. And the orders were quite clear, and they were all based upon this outrageous memo, which has come to be called a torture memorandum, written by Department of Justice political appointee, which said that one can do anything to a detainee short of killing him. It's absolutely shocking, but that was the basis. And then once that is given as an order, many people say, well, the president on down, the Department of Justice and so on have all authorized this, so it must be okay. Well, it's clearly not. It wasn't to me. It was obvious, and it was obvious to many other people too.
I know. I was wondering that about
but that's the justification.
What skepticism did you bring to think that, no, this didn't necessarily come from the president on down to make it okay?
Well, it did come from the president on down, but I didn't, frankly, care that it did, because as anyone in the military and as anyone in the CIA should know, our obligation is to the Constitution and to our oath. And a president doesn't get, and a general or anyone doesn't get to issue orders that are illegal. And this was clearly illegal. It was just an obvious point. One doesn't need to be a lawyer to know this. Unfortunately, the institution as a whole and numbers of my colleagues thought that following orders was sufficient.
What's your take? There has been this debate that's happened now about why torture is not effective. Why don't you think that torture is an effective means of extracting information?
Well, this is another thing that should be straightforward, too. As we all learned in math, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, and it's a straightforward bit of reasoning. Well, how would you respond? How would I respond? Anyone under duress and under extreme pain. You would do whatever you need to do to stop the pain, one. Two, you would become progressively hostile to the person inflicting the pain. That means you would be less likely to be cooperative. Even if the person says something, because at some point you'll say something to stop the pain, another basic principle of intelligence work, of tradecraft we call it, is that you don't believe anybody ever about anything. You have no friends. Even if your friends say something to you, you take nothing at face value. So something provided under duress especially has to be validated and verified, its reliability separately if you can. If you can do that, then you don't need to do the torture. But the odds of the information becoming unreliable are exponentially greater when provided under duress. It's just an obvious point.
In our last segment, we were just talking about the effect of popular culture, and I've had judges and I've had lawyers talk to me about the CSI effect. That jurors see these shows like CSI and these other criminal shows and think that's the evidence that they need in order to convict a convict. And we see torture portrayed in films and television all the time. Has that become ingrained in the culture? Do you think that has an impact?
Oh, it's a dramatic factor in what's happened to our national culture. For 14 years, we have had our national leaders, certainly through 2008, say that there are terrorists everywhere, we are in grave, almost existential danger, and we will do whatever it takes. That's literally what I was told to do, actually. Whatever it takes to stop the threat. One. Two, then you have the popular culture, the zeitgeist, which is shaped, and it shapes the public far more deeply than official pronouncements of shows like 24, which I refuse to watch, or others that show CIA officers doing the tough stuff that they're hired to do and getting the girl and getting the secret and stopping the bomb. All of that is complete malarkey. It doesn't happen that way in real life. But it has been so profound in its effects that the commandant of West Point actually spoke with producers in Hollywood and said, although we train our cadets that torture is illegal and ineffective, they don't believe us because they've seen the show 24. Let
me just ask you very quickly before I move on to the next segment, do you think the way the culture has changed within these institutions now that it's going to change back, or is this going to be the new method?
Well, happily it's not the new method, but the culture and cultures are not immutable, as we've seen post 9/11. But it will take progressive drumbeats of statements from leaders and in the public consciousness saying that torture is illegal, immoral, unethical, doesn't work, and unnecessary to change the public opinion.
All right. Well, Carle, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.